What is up, Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. And today, again, I have back Laura Savino. We are not roommates still. I'm sorry, guys. It didn't work out that way. But I decided to have her back on because, well, one, it's always a lot of fun. But two, she is like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to like actual effective body composition changes and how to do it the right way. And so I wanted to have her back on after we talked about like the bulking episode to talk about Recomp, when it's actually somewhat effective, but usually it's not. So just wanted to have her on, and she has a really cool story in comparison to that we're probably going to talk about. So welcome back.
Happy to be back. Maybe we should change it to the Fit Habit Life plus Laura Savino sometimes at this point. I mean, it might be a little bit too long. The acronym might be a little bit too long, but you know, we'll think about it. I'm gonna float it your way. And eventually, like, maybe I'll be a roommate on my next cross country drive though. So we might have to like do a 10-minute episode of like, we're from the same room right now. So
that would be great.
Yeah. All right, guys. I am so excited that Emma is having me back because we just had too much to talk about in the last episode. And the one thing we didn't even scrape the surface on when we're talking about like what's realistic to build muscle in a month is the other end of the spectrum, which is what is making another comeback and body recomposition. And I think before we really get into it, let's define the terms, and which is really important when we're talking about these things because a lot of coaches use these a little bit interchangeably, or I shouldn't even say coaches. People on the internet use these interchangeably. And when Emma and I are talking about body recomposition or body recomp and what's achievable, it is in the context of body recomp at maintenance, aka staying the same body weight and losing muscle and gaining fat. And when we say staying the same body weight, I mean plus or minus like 3 to 5 pounds. So there is a big resurgence in the space of like, oh, like I can just do a recomp phase and I don't have to do a fat loss, or I don't have to do a build, and I can just get to where I want to go. And that's what we want to talk about today, because I've had a number of clients and potential clients going like, hey, I saw XYZ person on Instagram telling me that I can recomp and I don't need to cut or bulk anymore. Can you help me with a recomp phase? And those are some not so fun conversations we get to have as coaches. And I think it's worth digging into as a solo topic today so that we can honestly selfishly have this to reference back. So be like, hey, here, we talked about this for an hour about recomping. So Emma, what if people brought back to you in terms of like this recomp, or like what are they thinking here?
A lot of people, and not necessarily clients, because most of my clients have a significant amount of body fat to lose, so it's not really top of mind. They're just like, I really want to lose weight. I don't really care about the recomp thing. But like other friends in the space, or even friends, not coach friends, just people, they're like, yeah, I just kind of want to like stay the same, but like build muscle and lose body fat. And it's like, cool, but that's going to take a long time, and that's harder to track and figure out and actually know if you're actually making changes. So I'm not a huge fan. I've noticed personally when I have gone into like a specific like build muscle phase or a specific lose body fat phase, I just get better results. So no, nothing specific I can think about off the top of my head, but just in general, it seems like a lot of people in the industry and in the space think that's a viable and effective way to do things.
Yep. And I think the biggest pushback that I have for this is, yes, and we'll kind of go into when recomp is possible, but recomp is usually brought to me in terms of like, I'm afraid to go into a muscle build, or I don't want to have I don't want to have to deal with counting or tracking my macros as closely in a deficit. Like, can't I just recomp and get there? And I think that is the core issue, is there's like a friction piece where people are like, oh, I'm scared of a build, or a fat loss seems too hard. But like, I think I've been told that I can get here the same way if I just recomp at maintenance. And they're like, how do I like best do my workouts? And guys, here's the deal. What I normally tell people is that it takes about 7x the amount of time to recomp at maintenance as it would to go through a specific build and fat loss phase. And so if
Wow.
Emma, I'm going to share when we go post this, I'm going to share my photos of we'll get into this, but 9 years at Recomp versus 1 year in a specific build and fat loss phase cycle. And it's pretty eye opening. But when we think about this piece, part of what we need to build muscle is that we do need to be in a calorie surplus or near calorie surplus to somewhat optimize muscle build. And same thing for losing body fat, we need to be in a calorie deficit. And many people actually are already recomping a little bit at maintenance, assuming lifestyle and training factors are optimized, okay? So that you're sleeping decently, you're eating enough protein, you are doing a good progressive overload program, you are probably very, very slowly recomping at maintenance. Most people do not have those optimized to begin with.
Yeah, training specifically, I've noticed a lot with new clients recently. Intensity is not there.
Yeah.
You're not sending a signal to the body to adapt in any way, shape, or form. So really, they're just not doing much.
This is actually, I post a lot of videos from my training sessions in my stories on Instagram, and I'll usually try to call out like, hey, this is 3RIR. And without fail, every week someone's like, oh, I've been sandbagging. And I'm like, yeah, if your sessions at 3RIR or 2RIR don't look like this, you are not pushing yourself hard enough. And so you could be doing everything right, but not pushing the intensity in your training session, and then we have no recomp happening. So as we, again, think about recomp here, you need both of those factors in general in order to stimulate building muscle and losing body fat if you're outside of our newbie gains phase. And so let's talk about in that context. So in the context of a week, that sort of happens at a micro level. Like say you're going out for the weekend, you went out to dinner on Saturday, Sunday, you maybe put yourself on a little bit of surplus. You probably also had a hard training day because you're a weekend warrior. And then Monday rolls around and you forgot to pack your lunch and you had like a trail mix bar and a pudding cup or something for lunch. Like you are creating some micro build and deficits, not optimal, but it does slowly allow you to do a little bit of like micro surplus, micro deficit. Long-term results of that, not super great. And also the factor that isn't here is like, I just had 1/7. So if it takes you 7 years to get the results that you could get in 1 year of periodization, how, Emma, you're a coach here. How likely is it that your client is going to stick to that same plan for 7 years, hoping that they're going to see results?
Not very, because they won't see a lot of results. So they probably won't be very compliant.
Yes. Yeah. So the psychological aspect of recomp is something that I think is not talked about enough. And that my clients have a hard enough time doing maintenance, let alone going, hey, we're going to do maintenance for 7 years because you don't want to build or cut in the next calendar year. They usually training adherence falls off, eating protein. They kind of go back to like, oh, well, like I'm not really doing anything. So what does it matter? Because it's so slow that they're not seeing anything happen. And that's kind of a big problem when we come like, okay, hey, like, so in this whole vein. So that's kind of like when we think about like how recomp works in general. We'll talk outside the newbie gains phase. Generally how it works. You're like, okay, I've got micro builds, micro deficits, and I sort of like eventually build a little muscle here, lose a little body fat there. The problem is that it's being sold by people in the industry who spent decades doing dedicated builds and cuts, and now they're in their like 10th to 15th year training and doing nutrition. They're like, oh, I've made these dramatic changes in recomp and maintenance. Well, if you look at there's a popular founder of a very large group training program who has been talking a lot about this lately. And it's not like negative, but I'm just like, look, my homie, I know I followed you for 10 years. Like you were doing some big builds, like year-long builds, 6-month builds with like some dramatic fat loss phases 10 years ago. And now you're saying, oh, you don't need to do this. Like you can look like me, shredded at 8% body fat and just like continue to build muscle every year by just eating at maintenance. Like that's not really realistic because we need to be able to stimulate that growth. And you also have to get to that level of leanness to be able to see those things happening. And when I think about for our clients, they're not hiring us because they want us to pay us for the next 7 years. They want to know, how do I get there the fastest and most efficient way possible? And when we think about efficiency in your journey, we are going to be a lot more efficient at building muscle and losing body fat by going through specific nutrition periodization, where we have those goals of going, I'm going to go through a dedicated muscle building phase. I'm going to optimize my training. I'm going to optimize my lifestyle, and I'm going to optimize my nutrition to build as much muscle as possible in this time frame. Because then we know we're not leaving a stone unturned. Like, what if you just said, again, what can I do in a year versus 7 years? We can get a lot more done in a year if we go, I'm going to dedicate making sure that these factors are aligned and not leave any room for doubt on the table. That we are in a build, that we are building muscle, and that we are doing the thing that we said we were going to do.
Yeah, and from a psychological perspective, like personally, right now I don't really have a goal. Well, to not fry my calves. It literally took 5 days. They were still sore on Thursday. Dude, it was insane. I went on a gnarly hike and I didn't have food or water. And my calves, I could not walk without pain for 5 days.
Yeah, the SOS voice memo I got from Emma going, how much should I eat on my hike today? Because I had a chewy granola bar and a 60-ounce bottle of water. Yeah. It was not good. I was like, ooh, no. About 1,000 more calories than you packed. Next time, use the fueling map and figure out how many.
I bought her fueling map and I've been playing around with it. So I'm going on a hike today. So I have already packed some stuff. I'm going to pick some stuff up from a gas station. So we're good. But anyway, I'm not working on anything right now, and it makes it harder to I'm still doing the things, and I need a season of less structure because I'm very type A, but I'm not as structured in my exercise routine or in my nutrition. I'm a little bit more lenient and stuff. And so just having a purpose and a goal and a game plan and a time frame of that goal will make you more compliant and more consistent and help you get more out of that. Where it's I'm basically at Recomp, right? I'm not in a build, I'm not in a fat loss phase, I'm going to try the performance maintenance thing, obviously, because I don't want to experience that again. But I'm not training for anything specifically. And so I'm just kind of living life, but I'm not expecting results. I'm not expecting to shift my body composition or whatever. But for clients, usually it helps to have something.
Yeah, for clients, having a plan of going, hey, we have this very specific time frame for the next 3 to 6 months. Well, it's June right now. So honestly, half my clients are either in a fat loss phase or transitioning out of fat loss into maintenance. But it's hey, maybe for June through July or June through August, we have a dedicated time to be in a fat loss phase. I think one of the things that help too is going, when we're in a dedicated fat loss phase, you're a lot more compliant when you have an end date. You're I only have to eat lower calories, really manage my intake for the next 8 to 12 weeks. And when that phase is up, then I know that I have maintenance on the horizon. And when we just kind of float around in this, I'm trying to lose body fat and we'll see what happens, you sort of end up with 1 or 2 actual compliance days and then a couple of YOLO days. And we end up just turning our wheels a lot. And so having that very kind of short-term dedicated phase goal, again, tends to net bigger results. And so, okay, going back to our recomp of going, gaining muscle and losing body fat and maintenance. I think it's probably best if we go through that list that's been floating around about when you can, quote unquote, rapidly recomp. So big, massive influencer in the space posted a 16-point list about the scenarios in which you could rapidly recomp and simultaneously lose body fat and gain muscle. And I think what's important here, and what we saw, I had a ton of clients and non-clients send this to me, and they're can I do this? Can I do this? And I think it would be helpful if we go through what those 16 points are and who this applies to. Because I don't disagree that we can, but let's dig into it. So those 16 points. So number 1, first start lifting weights, newbie gains. Recomping with newbie gains. Yes, many of you probably saw this. You're the first 6 months I started lifting weights. We covered this in our bulking episode about last episode about how much muscle you can gain in your first 3 to 6 months of lifting. If you just start lifting weights for the first time, you are going to build muscle regardless of what your nutrition looks like, unless you're in deep deprivation mode. You are sending such a brand new novel stimulus of building muscle, or with that your body's gonna we have to do it no matter what. And so even if you're deep in a deficit, you will still gain some muscle. Maybe is it as much as you would have gained if you were in maintenance surplus? Probably not. But because it's so novel, you are going to gain muscle no matter what. But how often do you first start lifting weights?
Once.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's great. But it doesn't mean, and I think the other thing too is like, yes, you were going to send the muscle building stimulus, but are you going to optimize? Like when we talked last episode, we're like, okay, lifetime amount of muscle that we can put on, maybe like 15 to 25 pounds. Like we want to optimize as much as possible. And so, yes, you can recomp at maintenance when you first start lifting, but like, what if you optimize that and you were able to like gain 9 pounds in your first 6 months instead of 5 pounds in your first 6 months? Like that's a pretty dramatic difference. Like I tell myself, the one thing that I wish I would have done the first 2 years is like optimize, like being just straight up building. The first 2 years I started strength training because like how much more could I put on then had I known what I know now, right? Okay, number 2.
Yeah, dramatically improving training regimen. But basically getting an actual real strength training program, not a beach body circuit or using the same weight for like 10 years. Yeah, you're going to actually send a signal to the body to make changes and adapt. So you will see a significant amount of changes with that. Like I have some clients that they were doing like a beach body style thing, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna actually train and lift weights appropriately. But I also put them in a small surplus to get them more efficient and effective results.
Mm-hmm. And I think, again, dramatically improve training regimen, especially, coming from a beach body, coming from like a video on demand, or just coming from like a 30-minute quickie workout. Like those things are not muscle stimulating enough. And so when you go back and improve and you're like, oh, I know what training to failure looks like now. It's a massive unlock for improving gains there. So again, but how many times are we going to dramatically improve our training regimen?
Maybe a handful of times.
Probably like 2 to 3 when I think about it. So like maybe you go from you start off at the gym and you start off with the group training classes and start at like Les Mills. You probably are going to see some gains in the first 3 months. That's what gets you hooked, because you go, oh, I've gone from nothing to like doing these Les Mills body pump classes. And you're like, I saw such crazy gains in my first 3 months. I'm going to keep doing this. And then you go, oh, wait, it was just so novel. I got some gains, but you stop. And then we go from Les Mills to maybe you're following another, like maybe like a ladder app or something where like, okay, now I've got like a little bit more of a structured training plan, but maybe I'm not pushing myself. And you might make that next bump. And then the third one is coming to like a true one-on-one or group hypertrophy style program. And you're like, oh. So we've got like a couple layers there where you could recomp a little bit more quickly because you've just dramatically improved the stimulus you're sending to your body. So we'll give you like 3 to 4 times in your lifetime for that one. Number 3, dramatically improve nutrition and food quality. Yeah, actually, I'm going to agree with this.
Yeah, that's a big one, really.
So I coach a lot of women through muscle building. And their first, and okay, I know we're talking about recomp, but if we think that recomp is non-optimized muscle building, let's talk about this. This example is going to make sense. The first muscle build that many of my women go through, even though they have been following some quality programming for 2 to 5 plus years, I have seen not only muscle built, but significant recomp when we optimize both their training and nutrition. There are times where I'm like, okay, you gained 8 pounds in this build, which was maybe, over 6 months. Great. But we look at photos and I'm like, you gained way more muscle and way less body fat than even I anticipated, because you're sending such a strong novel stimulus of actually pairing quality programming with quality nutrition for the first time in your entire life. Like maybe you've been CrossFitting for 10 years, but you've never actually fueled for that CrossFit. So you were doing some heavy working out. Now you're doing that, doing one of our progressive overload programs, and you are pairing that with actually not having any low days, being in a deficit, not starting over like 3 or 4, 6 diets a year. That combination, for the first time, I tell all my like gals going through a build for the first time that if you do that, you will likely see more built muscle than we would possibly expect in the first like build you ever do, because you've paired those two together. Because it's usually the first time in their life that you've paired that nutrition and training together. So we go, if that's what's happening when you actually optimize in the building environment, I would 100% agree that you could probably recomp in that first 3 months of just dramatically improving your nutrition as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Personally, like I was not eating. Well, I'm trying to look at the list. Does it say anything about like GI issues? It does not. That is another one, actually. So fixing my gut health, but also not eating low carb, like actually fueling my training. And even in a fat loss phase, I actually did recomp, which I think was primarily like the gut health thing. Like I've put on a significant amount of muscle this past year, and some of it was put in a fat loss phase, quote unquote, because gut health was actually working. And so I could actually like fuel and recover from my training. And I probably wasn't in that big of a deficit. But yeah, it's huge. Like actually fueling your training when you can push performance intensity, right? So you can get more out of the training sessions. But then too, you have more fuel to allow your body to recover and rebuild and repair that tissue. So it's huge. And even if you're thinking like micronutrients too, like going from processed foods to like more nutrient dense foods, that just optimizes how everything works in your body. So you're going to see a dramatic shift.
Yeah. And I think for you think about this and go, like, if my nutrient absorption was low because I had so much GI inflammation and irritation, we go, oh, I am intaking the same amount of nutrition quality, but my body's actually able to utilize all those building blocks in a way that it wasn't before because of the GI issues you had before. And we go, like, it's not necessarily a novel environment, but your environment is such a much better spot for utilizing all those micros and macros too. So,
yep.
100%. Number 4, returning from a long layoff. So similar to newbie gains, if you had to take a long time off the gym for an injury, illness, or just life be lifing, kicked you in the teeth, and you moved, and then somehow you didn't buy a gym membership again for the next 6 months later, you will have where you could say, quote unquote, rapid recomping. And I'm really putting that in quotes because we talked about recomping being simultaneously building muscle and losing body fat. However, if you are coming from a long layoff and you're coming back into the gym, you are likely not building new muscle tissue. You are rapidly rebuilding existing muscle tissue. So if you think of your muscle fibers as like water balloons, okay? Now, this is the example I give to my clients. It's a little bit off the wall here. But the first time you fill up like a balloon, it's really, really hard, right? It's really stretchy. If you're water balloon or like you have to put a lot of pressure into it. Well, when you take some time off the gym, those fibers don't necessarily go away. They just deflate. So once you have built those muscle fibers, they just kind of deflate. And when you go back to the gym after a long layoff and you are rebuilding muscle tissue, you are re-inflating those tissues. And it only takes like a third the amount of time that it did to take you to build them in the first place. So yes, when you return from a long layoff, you are likely going to see rapid muscle coming on. And I say rapid in quotes because that's a relative statement. But it's not necessarily new tissue. It's just regaining what you already lost. And then we go back to, okay, like you've regained what you've lost. And now we have to go back into that typical process of building again. So I kind of put an asterisk on this one, and it's combined with the one after this, which is point number 5, which is finally able to train hard again after an injury. So yeah, when you're coming off a long layoff, whether it's an injury or any other reason.
Yeah, and kind of the same thing. Yeah. And then next one. First time using steroids. Shocker, right? Of course, you're going to build a lot of muscle. Yeah. You're hijacking your body's natural signals. So,
yeah. I love that this was a list for like the everyday person where it's like, okay, so number 6 and 7 on this list, guys, were first time using anabolics and then getting back on anabolics. Like that.
I didn't read that one yet. Yeah. Like, okay.
So yeah, rapid recomp when you're using anabolics. Like, we're not experts in anabolics. We have friends on anabolics. But this is not
I've never
the Fit
used
Habit
one.
Life. We have
Yeah.
never used them.
No.
We're not going to use them. So I'm honestly like this cannot be on the list for everyday people for rapid recomping. So 6 and 7 in the trash. All right. I'm gonna kick 8 to you. Instead, we're keep going.
Okay. So switching from low to optimal protein intake. It's like, yes, but also optimal is not that much probably higher than what most people think. Like a lot of people are talking like 1 gram per pound of body weight or more. Probably not. You really only need about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And if you're like me, like 170, 175 pounds, it's like 130, 140 grams per day-ish, give or take. That's not that much. And a lot of people online talk about protein. And what I'm seeing consistently, female clients coming in, starting to work with me, and they're eating more protein than I am. And no, most women are not 6 feet tall, 175 pounds, and they're eating like, 170, 180, 190, 200 grams of protein, and they're eating like less than 100 grams of carbs.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, Emma, I actually have more people coming in with crazy high protein. Yeah, I'd go with generally 0.8 per pound body weight or 0.9 per pound lean body mass. There's a broader range we can get into, but don't need to for this one. I'm agree with you. I'm going to disagree here because I see so many women come in and then they have GI issues because they're eating so much protein.
Yes.
And then not enough carbs for repairing muscle that, generally speaking, yes, if you were only eating 50 to 60 grams of protein per day and then we get you closer to that 0.7 to 0.8 per pound body weight, yes, you are probably going to have a little bit more optimal environment for protein, but on the same token, it's not just diminishing returns, it's negative returns if you go too high because the opportunity cost of not eating carbs and the GI impact of over protein is really high for a lot of women. And they're like, hey, I feel a lot better. My training sessions are better when I cut those significantly and push those into the carbohydrate column.
Yeah, I'm one of them, actually. I've talked about this a lot, but I used to eat 220 grams a day, and I was always bloated. Shocker, right? So, yeah, I disagree with that point. And I think, 60 grams, that's pretty low. There's also probably other poor eating habits and behaviors with the people that are eating only like 60 grams of protein a day. But anyway, number 9, going from low to optimal sleep schedule. Yeah, that's huge. But I mean, again, that's like you can't recover if you're not like you break the muscle tissue down in the gym, and if you're not sleeping and allowing your body to rebuild and repair that tissue, you're not going to really build anything. So
and again, is like I go back to, is this going to be a rapid recomp situation?
Oh,
I mean, I've had some clients go from shift work and they get a much more optimal schedule. So maybe they're flipping days and nights and they go to an optimal schedule. Does it rapidly change? I'm going to go with no. I mean, in the real life scenarios, and I'm working with like some nurses or EMS and they're shifting, or the surgeons and they're shifting, and like it does improve quality of life for sure and makes a lot of other pieces easier when we're sleeping enough. And I do agree with the muscle repair, but I'm not going to go with a rapid recomp here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking in general, does it improve muscle building? Yes. It's not rapid. None of these things, I mean, like anabolics, yes. Most of these things, not rapid. And yeah, I would agree with that too, actually. But really, like the biggest thing with the sleep is not the sleep itself. It's like, well, you have energy, so you can like train better. So that's usually the biggest thing, I'd say.
And we've got I want to say the studies from like 2014 or 2016. And this isn't necessarily muscle building, but it is muscle loss. And they did a sleep deprivation study for clients or people in a fat loss phase, and a group that was limited to 5 hours of sleep. Their P ratio, so how much weight, the percentage of weight they lost out of muscle, was 40%. And the people who were at a 8+ hours of sleep, it was closer to 15%. So like sleep deprivation in a calorie restricted environment absolutely impacts muscle loss. And we do know that sleep is critical for muscle repair. So the clients who sleep better tend to have an easier time building muscle in general. But I think when we think about like big picture things, I just wouldn't put this as like, oh, hey, you've improved your sleep. Now you can recomp and maintenance better. But rapidly, I'm gonna go no on that one.
Fair.
Okay. Number 10, switching from a high to optimal lifestyle stress or amount of stress in your life. Yeah. Again, not rapid. Is it going to help? Sure. But is it going to be something that's rapid? I think so far we're 10 out of 16 on this list, guys. And the only things that Emma and I are agreeing that would be quote unquote rapid are your newbie gains or returning from a layoff.
Or anabolics.
Okay, yeah, sorry, anabolics. which I've already discounted off my.
Yeah, I don't think I've had any single person, except for people who've gone to med spas for HRT, be on anabolics.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, number 11, dramatically increasing your motivation to train hard because you have an upcoming wedding, photo shoot, or competition. Emma, how many times are you getting married in this lifetime?
Once, hopefully, ideally.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm going on like year 10 here, so hopefully once for me too. Okay, so that's one blip on the lifetime radar to increase your motivation to train, which is it? Yeah, I mean, is it motivation to train?
It's not rapid.
Really rapid recomp.
No, it's not rapid. It's just going to help you be more consistent and push training intensity. So you'd probably get some muscle built. But
yeah, but I'd also go like, okay, rapid recomp before a wedding. Okay, guys, this list was written by a dude. He obviously did not plan his wedding. Yeah,
actually, fair. Most stressful period of my life, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see, I think the negative impacts of like you're planning a wedding.
And people are crazy.
It's great. People are crazy. Yeah. Family, travel, all the things you're doing. Like there's way too many other factors that are going to bring it down. This is absolutely not like motivation for a wedding is not a rapid recomp situation. No way.
Nope.
Okay, number 12.
Removing, I don't know why I said rapid, removing barriers like drug use, disordered eating, or excessive cardio. So, yes, but not rapid recomp, just like, hey, you're going to be healthier and you're actually probably going to eat enough. And you're like, if you're not doing excessive cardio, if you just stop, you're going to be in a surplus.
Yep.
So that's not going to be recomp. You won't be at maintenance anymore. If you have disordered eating behaviors, well, yeah, you're like not eating food. So when you start to eat food, you're going to be in a surplus because your body's probably adapted to that low caloric intake. So that's also not recomp. You're not at maintenance anymore. And then drug use. I don't have any clients who used to consistently be using drugs. Or like, I guess I don't know what type of drugs. Cause
that's a very vague statement. I mean, like you could, I don't even want to get into, just keep going
out of my scope. I could say like, okay, if you smoke weed all the time, like you might have the munchies, but so maybe the foods that you're eating aren't optimal for muscle building, but you'd probably be in a surplus. So I'd argue the opposite.
Motivation to train would probably be low though. So
that's true.
You're right. So my brain started going down that rabbit hole. I was like, it's not. But I will say, okay, removing excess cardio. Let's go through that one. Absolutely will help you create a better anabolic environment. So when we think about if you are somebody who is trying to train for a marathon or just has gotten hooked on like, I'm going to run 5 days a week, you are not putting yourself into a solid muscle building environment because when are your legs going to recover if you are on them for 5 days a week and then you're trying to throw 2 to 3 leg days on top of it? Like that's too much. Your muscle building is the game of over recovery. So you have to recover and then over recover for your next session in order to build. There's no over recovery happening if you are doing excessive cardio, especially when you're looking at those like lower leg thrusting groups. So yeah, sure. If you remove excessive cardio though, that just puts you into a typical muscle building state. It's going to rapidly recomp. I don't think it's going to rapidly gain muscle anymore. So it's just going to be like, oh, hey, I finally have the recovery ability to build muscle because I'm no longer overdrawing from an empty well of recovery. So I'm still going to disagree with this one too.
Yep.
First time specializing on a specific body part. What do you think about this one, Emma? Again, rapid recomp, building muscle at maintenance. If I add an entire glute day to my 4-day week training schedule, am I going to build more glutes?
It depends. You will probably, if you're adding a day of glute training, but you're not managing the other volume, you might actually go into a deficit if you're not changing your nutrition. So I would argue no. If you change your volume and primarily target your glutes, the muscle that you do build will go to your glutes. Is it going to be rapid? No.
Yeah. I'm going to go with back to point I made number 12 is a game of over recovery. If I added an entire glute day at maintenance, 1, again, deficit, I'd probably be really hungry. 2, it might just be too much. Like I personally at this point in my training career, I am not recovering from a third glute day, especially depending on how I see a lot of people who bring me ChatGPT programs are like, oh, I've just been doing this on ChatGPT. Like it's 3 glute days. And I'm like, no. You're not going to recover from all those length and overload movements. So, again, I just don't think it's going to be specialized on a specific body part. Like that's a little bit too broad, to be honest. Like depends on where you're coming from to where you're going. And I just don't think it's going to be rapid by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. And speaking of like training body parts, like 3 days a week, like when you are pushing the intensity or training close to failure, your body's not going to recover at all. And you're going to be gassed and burnt out. And your performance is going to tank. So I'd argue the opposite.
Agreed. I think I wrote this one backwards from their list. We'll go with first time focusing on physique instead of performance. I put it as performance of physique, but that doesn't make any sense. So
interesting. Or maybe it's like focusing on strength. Like
okay, yeah, that might actually be it. Like first time, okay,
yeah.
So how it was written on the list, guys, and I'm wondering if it says first time focusing on performance instead of physique, in parentheses, progressive overload focus. So I guess potentially first time focusing on performance in the gym, like I'm focusing on how well my lifts are progressing versus how I look in the mirror. Which I might bundle this with a dramatic improvement in training regimen.
Yeah, I would for sure, because I think that's the missing piece for a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, you would see a drastic shift probably. Mm-hmm. But nutrition also matters. And
yes.
So
yeah, I'm going to go with this is like number 2, but said differently. Yeah.
And number 15, another steroid one. Dramatically increasing anabolic steroids.
Assuming you don't have a heart attack while you're doing it. Again, we don't know anything about anabolics. Like, go ask the anabolics people here, but I don't.
Yeah, this is not us.
This is not like more of a good thing is a good thing. This is more of a good thing could be.
Yeah. Well, I've had clients go to specific med spas, don't recommend, for hormone replacement therapy. Older adults, history of heart attack, testosterone at 1500. Yeah.
Guys, if you're not watching the video here, I just made a face at Emma. That's yikes.
Yeah, really bad. And this was not right after the pellets were inserted. This was like months later. So yikes. Lord knows how high his testosterone got. But he did build muscle. He built a lot of muscle. It was actually not helpful for his previous conditions, but helpful for building muscle as a 70-year-old man, I guess.
You're basically at superhuman levels at that point, super physiological levels. So yeah. Okay, yeah, yep. Dramatically increasing Anabolic steroids, sure, but
Yes.
out of scope for us.
Yeah.
Okay, number 16, first time training in an optimal environment. So like going to a gym with good equipment and motivated lifters. You know, I'm going to say yes for this one for recomp and maintenance purposes because I've seen you work with quite a few women like this too, but I have quite a few women are coming from like dumbbell only programs at home and they think they're pushing themselves. But guys, you know, I love a home gym here. In fact, our group programming is home gym centric. However, your ability to push to failure is necessitated by how confident you are in doing so. And some people do not have the will or confidence to push closer to failure when they're at home in their gym. Whereas if you go to a gym and you're like, oh, I can use a machine and I'm not going to get crushed by this barbell or I'm not going to get crushed by this weight by myself. I can go use this gym that has safeties and I can push myself a little bit harder. If you go into that optimal environment with good equipment and like you see other people working hard and you automatically like increase your output because you see they're working hard, that's like a fraction of those newbie gains. And I would 100% actually agree with this statement too, because I've had quite a few clients who are like, I'm so glad you finally convinced me to go to a gym for my first build and it was so much better. And I know a lot more what training to failure looks like now than I ever thought I did working out at home.
Oh yeah, it's huge. And I would like add on to this, like getting an in-person trainer or something that also pushes you and pushes the intensity, because I think like you said, like a lot of clients that I coach that are women that work out from home, never train in a gym, never had any training or whatever, like structured training. Maybe they were an athlete in high school or college and had like strength and conditioning or whatever. If they've never done that, they don't know what it feels like or looks like. And having people around who are actually pushing them to do that thing or seeing what, oh, it's supposed to look like this, big changes can result for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So, guys, we just went through this 16-point checklist. To remind you, in case, you know, it's been 20 minutes and you've forgotten, this 16-point list was put out by one of the biggest coaches in the space about you don't need to bulk and cut anymore. Here's how you can rapidly recomp. 3 of them are anabolic steroid related. Okay, so let's go with 13. So with the 13 there, and also, okay, one of those 13 has to do with drug use, so we'll go with 12, okay? Because I don't think our audience is probably doing meth or something. I don't know.
Probably not.
Okay. And by our, I've already said that's our audience. Emma's audience here.
Well, I mean, your clients listen to these too, so
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Notice this list. Everything is like first time or correcting something that was majorly wrong. We don't correct something that's majorly wrong over and over again. Like you do this once. So of these 12 bullet points, you might encounter these one time. Most of you guys who are listening to us or coming to work with us, you have been doing the thing consistently or pretty consistently for a year, 2, 3 years at this point, or even longer. Like you don't get to check any of these boxes or rarely get to check any of these boxes. And so while it's being put out, like, sure, you can, and we agreed with some of them, like these rapidly recomp, that's just not applicable to you anymore. You've been consistently eating protein. You get enough sleep most days. You push yourself in the gym and you're like, why am I not like seeing these rapid recomp results that these coaches are talking about? Well, you're not able to be in a situation in which you can't achieve those anymore.
Yep. Or you haven't spent because like we said, this works, quote unquote, works for people who've been training for like 15 years and who have spent time in like a significant amount of builds and fat loss phases and whatnot. So once you get to where you want to be, then yeah, you can stay at maintenance and see some results over time, and you like how you look and you feel good and your performance is good. Like, yeah, you will start to see like small changes year over year, but you're already where you want to be. And so why prolong the process, right? Might as well get there and then enjoy the recomp results, quote unquote.
Yes, 100%. So, I mean, it's just like looking through this and I think about expectations versus reality. So bring it back to the front. The realistic, if you're outside of these, 12-ish points of rapid recomp, your recomp is going to be very, very slow. And most people are coming to us and their end goal, they're like, hey, if they've kind of told you or visualized, I'd say the average client coming to me probably wants to lose about 20 pounds of body fat and wants to be on a frame with about 10 more pounds of muscle. That I should have done the math before I got on this podcast. But when there's a long,
that's probably 2-3 years maybe.
Of periodization.
Yes. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah.
So 2 to 3 years of periodization times 7. So 14 to 20 years of recomp at maintenance if you're not checking any of these boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So when we are pushing you as coaches and we're like, hey, I know you want this big goal. You've already checked all the boxes you can to like do what you can at recomp. When we are pushing as coaches, we are pushing you into a slight surplus or into a steeper deficit because we know that you want to get to this end goal and get in and get out and get there faster. And that's why we don't coach you to like have a 1-year recomp phase unless it's absolutely necessary because of other health issues. Like if you have other health things going on and you cannot be in a fat loss phase, you cannot be in a build phase, or you cannot be in performance phase, then we go, what can we do to optimize maintenance? And we're going to do the best that we possibly can in this phase. And of course, we will help you and guide you through that. But if you've got big goals, if you're sending me photos like Paleo MG and you're like, I want to look like Paleo MG. I'm like, I followed Paleo MG for 15 years. She's a bad bitch. And she has done builds and done fat loss phases, and she has a lot of muscle on her frame. You need to start learning how to train to failure and add that 10 to 15 pounds of muscle first. And we're just not going to do that at maintenance. We need to do some dedicated build phases, and then we have to go through get to a lot leaner state than we are in order to see that muscle that you're building.
Yep, 100%. And I guess to quantify, like, what would be things that would justify, like, kind of staying at maintenance, gut health issues. Mm-hmm. Gut health issues, mold. Personally, struggling with that. I don't know, stressful seasons of life. Like, if you're in a stressed state, like, trying to change your body composition, probably not a good idea because your ability to recover is going to be lower. Right? Like if you are building a business or have some, financial stressors or whatever. It's like, just enjoy the season that you're in and try to optimize what you can in the gym and push the intensity and prioritize recovery, and you will see some results. But again, if you don't have those things, don't have those problems, like going into dedicated seasons is going to give you the best results and the most effective and quickest results.
Yeah. And that's when I think about when we're talking about setting up your periodization plan, like what does your next few years go? Spending the maximum amount of time you can above maintenance and then doing dedicated fat loss phases where you can. And what I mean by that is if you're looking at your year and you go, okay, I can be in a build or I can be above maintenance from Labor Day through the end of January. Cool. Then February, March, April, February through May, we've got a 12 to 16 week fat loss phase. We are going to get in, be as aggressive as possible that allows you to be compliant. And then we get out and we repeat that process until you are where you want to be. And for some clients, obviously with bigger weight loss goals, we might titrate that out a little bit differently. And then we throw maintenance where it's necessary. So like I've had a couple years, if you look at my last 7 years of periodization, 2021 and 2024, I had 2 major surgeries. 2021, I had a MPFL repair, which is just a grueling 6 months recovery. And I spent the injury happened on New Year's Eve the year before. And then I didn't get into surgery until late Feb. And then I couldn't walk for 3 months. And then it was another 3 months of like rebuilding the ability to do lower body movements. So I started a build that year, and I want to say September. So I went through the entire surgery recovery process. And then I was like, all right, well, going back to our rapid recomp. So for those of you who are not who are listening, my quad on my right side, because I didn't walk on it for 3 months, couldn't be weight bearing, lost 7 inches off my right quad. And so
Crazy.
if I've posted some like progress photos over the years, and I always put a little asterisk, like it looks like I have insane quad gains. You're like, oh my God, Laura, your first build, you gained so much quad muscle. And I put an asterisk. I'm like, this is post knee surgery. Okay. So I did a 5-month build after I could get back in the gym, and I got all 7 inches back in 5 months. But was that new tissue? No. I mean, there was some new tissue, but most of it was regaining where I was before I had surgery. And my muscle, like my leg went from like throwing it back to like 2015 hot dogs or legs. It was like went from legs to hot dogs back to legs again. So I regained all that volume and then a little bit more, but 90% of that was just regaining the tissue I'd lost in that surgery repair side. And so that's a year where it was a big, big maintenance year. Same thing happened in 2024 where I had GI surgery in early April sometime. And again, was 3 months out of the gym, and I just sat at maintenance. I was like, all right, there's not a lot I can do right now because I'm not in a position where I can be in a fat loss phase. I'm not in a position where I can go push performance or muscle building. So then we sit at maintenance and we go like, what can I do to repair my gut health? What can I do to focus on the things that I can control? And those are scenarios in which, like, if I was able to return to the gym at some point, I'd be like, okay, well, if I can get some recomp, great. But it's not the thing that I'm expecting out of those phases.
Yeah. And that's the key. You're not expecting drastic results. And I guess that's kind of the point of this. Like, if you don't want to go into dedicated builds, fat loss phases, that's totally fine. But it's going to take a lot longer. So don't expect like crazy body composition changes, because that's just not realistic. And that's where I think the problem lies, is there's a lot of people, like we touched on, that are promoting it, and it's like, that's just not realistic. And then people scroll on social media and they're like, oh my gosh, I can get this physique by just staying the same. It's like, no, not really.
And if anything, I think actually what's a contradictory about that post is like, I can get this physique by staying the same. Yet every single one of those 16 bullet points was making dramatic changes in your life.
Yep.
And so that kind of negates, it's like, I have to make a dramatic change in order to see quote unquote rapid results. Then why would we think that staying at maintenance is going to get us rapid results?
I love that. That's where we should end the episode. So if you guys have enjoyed this episode, if you could rate the show, share the show, subscribe, that just helps get this information in front of more people, which is the goal of the show. And follow Laura at Laura Justine Savino on Instagram, and she has all of her stuff on there. Definitely check out the maintenance map that she's made. It's really cool. I use it. Highly recommend if you're like, hey, I'm not in a position where I can hire a coach, or I have no idea what my maintenance is. How do I figure that out? Download that and Chronometer, and you'll be set. And yeah, that's it for this episode. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for having me, Emma.